All right, we are live. Hello, welcome back to the last day of March. 24 years ago, The Matrix was released today, 1999, for those that have seen that iconic movie. And just today, Andrew Tate was released from jail, which is kind of ironic given the whole Matrix stuff. So it's a cool day to be doing a podcast. Thank you to the 30 people being here. We are here to talk about Sofi. But before we get into Sofi, we've got to talk about something. Okay, and what we've got to talk about has to do with one of the members of this podcast.
Who are the members?
I am. Well, yeah, two members, but one of the members in particular. I'm very ashamed that we have to bring this up on the podcast because I thought we were all friends. I thought we all actually liked each other. I thought we all cared about each other.
Oh, I'm about to tweet this right now.
Apparently, let me mute that guy because that guy doesn't deserve to talk right now. Because this guy's about to be put on blast. Let me tweet this as well. Let me say that we're live right now. But you know, it's just what I saw. This last night, Tanner. Yeah, last night.
Yeah, I think last night.
What I saw last night was such an abomination of friendship.
Friendship.
It was really sad to see. I mean, I was on the treadmill and I noticed it, and I was like, wow, I'm burning calories, but I'm losing friends at the same time. It just was not. It was not good. So let me share this right now. This is what happened. All right, we gotta just clear the air because we're all
I love
friends.
how like 12 people dropped, but whatever. Keep talking.
Yeah, I think the algorithm on YouTube is weird. Sometimes it does that. Okay, here we go. This is our private DMs. Okay, Tanner sends his video. The Sofi Technology Stock, the Millionaire Maker, at 8:51. Okay, this is a 10-minute video. He sends it at 8:51. I just want you guys to do the math here. 8:53. Fundamentals of Investing podcast says, well done on this vid. Very crucial info. Okay. And then Tanner could have let it go. Honestly, I would have let it go. I didn't care that much. Obviously, Tevis thought this video was up.
I want to respond to this after you're done.
No.
Bullshit.
How do you get off mute? You're supposed to be on mute. Stay on mute.
Yeah, he's watching on 5x speed.
And then Tanner decides to clap back. He says, did you watch it all? Bro, I just posted. And I'm on the treadmill running when this exchange is happening. I have to literally get on Twitter to be like, LMFAO, nah, this is how the pod is going to start. Because I think the SoFi community deserves to see the unbelievableness of what Tevis did. And Tanner said, how so? I said, because no way Tevis watched it. So him saying great vid is hilarious. In 2 minutes, this guy watched a 9-minute video. So now we'll give it. Hold on. Why are you still on mute? No, you're in jail right now. This is first of all, let's go to Tanner. Tanner, when you saw this, before you hear Tevis's defense, how did you feel when this happened?
Let down, disrespected, disregarded my feelings, my video, my hard work. That
was an edited video. You paid for that video to be edited. All that stuff you put in a lot of hard work into is a great video. And in 2 minutes for someone to be like, good vid, it just seems like they didn't care. It's a shame.
Shame.
Riley, what are your thoughts before Tevis goes on how this, what do you think it means for our friendship?
Outraged and appalled. I mean, obviously, for me anyways, it takes, for a 10-minute Tanner video, it takes me like 30 or 40 minutes to get through it. So just knowing Tevis got through it within 2 minutes is kind of unbelievable.
Why does it take you 30 or 40 minutes? Just how fast I'm talking?
I listened to you so much already, man.
Can I talk now?
All right, Tevis, there you go. You got it. Go ahead.
Fuck all you three motherfuckers because it doesn't take me to watch the full. Okay, first of all, it's 8 minutes, not 10 minutes. Okay.
It's a 9-minute video.
You responded 2 minutes later, though, so technically.
Yeah, okay. And when he posted that on Twitter, it was like 2 minutes after he actually posted it. I get alerts and go on Tanner's video. Go on Tanner's video right now. Go in the comment section. You're going to see a comment from me literally 10 seconds after he posted it. And we're just going to read that comment as a group together. First, and while Amit does that, have you all, Tanner, I know you have a significant other. You know that it is possible to be supportive without actually watching like the full video.
No.
Like,
this is not a debate about support. Honestly, I don't even catch all of Tanner's videos. This is just a debate about lying. It's not a debate about support. I didn't
lie. I said it's very crucial info. I didn't
but
say
you didn't get any info from the thumbnail and title. That's what gave you the info. What is the like?
Dude, I was like halfway through the video, and then
I'm questioning how you could be halfway through the video. I don't understand how.
Wherever my comment is. There you go.
I'm your biggest fan.
There you go.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you watched the video.
I was first to respond, first to like it, first to watch it.
That's great. But then when you said
seconds.
very well done vid, to me,
Yeah,
you
'cause
should
I
have
was
said
halfway
you
through.
should have said
And
very
if you
well
go
done
back
thumbnail.
into our DMs, if you go back into our DMs and you see what I responded, I said, haha, I'm halfway through right now.
Well, all
Why
I
try to
know
do
is
me like that?
very crucial information. Not knowing what information I put in, you know.
I would have been like,
And then-
great thumbnail. I'm going to watch this in a little bit. But you just said very well done vid. To me, I'm like, wait a second. That means the vid was been completed in terms of watch time. But
It was well done.
Thank you, guys.
Are we done this shit?
Thank you.
I just love watching him squirm. This is
This is
great. This is
bickering.
okay, obviously, this is all just like.
Bro,
we're playing
I
around
left
with
high
this.
school a long time ago. Enough of this shit.
Guys, so
Next
in
time
that
Tanner
video-
posts a video, you better fucking watch that shit, motherfucker. You heard my
I'm gonna comment even sooner.
Yeah.
Sooner. Okay.
Well, Tevis,
Tanner,
make
go
sure you hit that bell then, okay? Notifications on.
Thank
Okay.
you, Pietro.
In the video that I posted, I said that you needed, 10,854 shares at a price of $5.74. This was to get to $1 million in the stock price. And the reason why I had got to that number, or how I did that, or why I did that, was to show off that I believe that the stock is going to go up by 32% on a compounded annual growth rate for the next 10 years. Very aggressive. I don't even believe that this is a total best case scenario. I think that this is a bullish case for sure, but not best case. I want to know what you guys think about that prediction, and then I will argue for it and defend myself.
Anyone want to go?
Anyone else have a better prediction?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, look, bro, you broke.
So
I mean, you broke it.
Well, that's
Like,
true.
obviously, you're bullish, right? And like, it makes sense, and they have to have extreme execution for it to happen. The only way I see they would have to not grow at the level you think they're going to grow. There would have to be some fuck ups. Let's talk about this merger. Are they overspending on this merger? Right, that would definitely not be the best thing to play into your
he
bull
argued
case.
a 16x in 10 years for Sofi to be like, what, $92? I think you said, Tanner, $93.
Right. Which is why it's not that unreasonable either, because it IPO'd at 20 or SPAC'd at 20. So that would have been a 4x from the SPAC price at $5, or 10x. Or sorry, $10 10 at SPAC. Yeah, it ran up to 21, or it ran up to like 34, right, at one point.
25. You're getting your Palantir messed up.
I'm getting my Palantir. Yeah, Palantir was 35. So at that point, yeah, I mean, like a 16x sounds kind of crazy, but it doesn't from $5 because they were expected. One could argue they could have 10x from the $10 SPAC price, but they just have to grow in the way that you said they're going to grow. And Galileo, I think, has to play a big role into that. The consumer growth has to happen in terms of personal banking, and there actually has to be this revolution about getting your money right. And if that happens, then yeah, I think it's a reasonable video.
I was expecting so much more pushback. I was getting comments. This guy is insane. He's lost his mind. What kind of bank do you think does this?
For a $92 price target in 10 years? That's people were really pushing back on a $100 price target.
So one thing I think a 16x or sorry, a 32. I like looking at it as a 32% compounded annual growth rate. That's extremely aggressive.
Yes,
right? That's expecting a higher growth rate and for longer period of time than what Palantir is expecting. So I guess one of the largest parts of this is that we're talking about a stock price compounded annual growth rate and not a fundamental compounded annual growth rate. This is why I broke the video down into 3 separate areas. I know to push so early is crazy to push the video, but if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it later. But the stock price is actually under a 1x price to book ratio. Okay. Meaning that if we were to just go back to a 2x price to earnings ratio, 2x price to book, which is completely normal. In the fintech space, like I even showed off, even now the average is 6.2 times. Just to go to 2 times would mean that we only need to do about 16% compounded annual growth rates. It would cut it in half. So half of that growth to actually get to the stock price would just be in a change in valuation in this stock, which obviously could happen considering how much we've decreased in value since, November of 2021, which I'm not saying it'll even get back to there. I think there was a little bit of, actually, there was a lot of bit of, overvaluation. Now I think we're undervalued. I think maybe there's a sweet spot in the middle. But also it doesn't mean that there's not, future bull runs into the future that also push us back to that overvaluated standpoint. But so no pushback on my valuation from the crew here.
I mean, look, man, it's all execution risk, right? Like after the consolidation of the cores in 2025, you have 8 years to get to that price target. I mean, my first thought was this guy's turning into Kyle White with these price targets, but his is $50 by end of year, and yours is $92 in 10 years. So I thought it was more realistic. Obviously, it's a matter of massive execution depending on where the macro. I think if we have another bull run, and well, let's see, right? But if we have another bull run 24, 25, then that's obviously going to inflate the multiple that Sofi will command. They're going to be in a profitable position. They're going to have consolidated their cores. Yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic to expect, by that time, probably we'll have some big bank clients on Galileo's network announced and public. So I don't see it being unreal. 10 years is a long time, man. So
right.
That's why I'm not pushing back. I'm just curious as to how you got to that 16x number as opposed to 15 or 14 or 17. What was the logic behind that?
Right. So a lot of it was just looking at the demographic numbers and trying to weigh them out versus. So I said it in the video. I looked at the fundamental growth. I looked at the actual demographic growth, and then I looked at the valuation growth. And then I tried to weigh them out depending on how much I thought that they would each weigh in comparison. I'm not going to give it away too much just because there's a couple people that maybe haven't seen the video, but I weighed them versus their averages, and then the growth rates of the studies that I all had and how much I thought that those growth rates would lean in. And it actually wasn't 16x. It was something really, really close. But it was close enough where I could just make the video a $1 million video or something like this. And then, but yeah, I did a ratio. I'll send you it after this. But what I also wanted to touch on, guys, is my actual valuation of, a 16x over the next 10 years versus what Anthony Nodo thinks that this stock will do in the next 3 to 5 years. Have you guys seen this back in the actual last fireside chat? He believed that we would become a top 10 financial institution by assets under management in 3 to 5 years. Okay. I think currently something like this, we have $9 billion as of the last recorded Fed numbers, which if I look at it correctly, it places us at 149th. He thinks in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll go from 9 billion to what it stands today, which it'll probably grow, is $387 billion. So from 9 to 387 in the next 3 to 5 years. So if people think my estimates are bullish, we're not even close.
To be fair, Nodo has to be massively bullish at this level. To really get investor interest. But yeah, it's a fair comparison. I mean, if the CEO is saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we trust him as an operator, then
I mean, you gotta, with these types of things, you have to take a spoonful of salt, right? Because like I said, it's execution risk. You have to take it in turns. It's like saying, oh, when robotaxi comes, Tesla is going to be $3,000 a share and 100 whatever $1 trillion market cap and all this stupid shit. But I think
Elon saying that?
No, investors, whether they're retail or institutional, research firms, Kathy Wood, are coming out with their own models, and it's just these extravagant numbers. But baked into those numbers, there's a wide variance the further out you go, because there's more uncertainty introduced the further out you go. With regards to this, what are the next catalysts? What are the next things that I'm looking for? It's consolidation of the cores, which, I mean, we can talk about that acquisition. I think that's one of the big news today. Obviously, them hitting their tranches by 2026, 2025-ish, that timeline. if we hit their tranches, they're consolidated, they're profitable, and then we can start to look to other targets. But I think, we have to hit these mile markers before we can even start to consider, because if we don't hit them, then that 92 might become, 82 in 10 years. But if we do hit them, then it might become like 92 in 7 years or whatever. And so my point is that the milestones that we hit, whether we hit them early or late, in the next 2 years or in the next 3 years, are going to dictate what the stock is going to do in the next 10 years, because it is all execution risk.
Well, I think it's impossible to know like what SoFi is going to look like in 5 to 10 years as of right now, because I mean, foremost, we're a technology company, and I really think there is a lot of type of ways that you can make new technologies that can be completely not value. You can't value SoFi on what it is today based on the technology that it will develop within the next 5 to 10 years. Banking apps suck, and I really think that SoFi will get a lot of deposits, but I don't think there's any way you can actually really value how SoFi is going to look in 10 years.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think it's a fun thought experiment. I saw a comment really quick, though. Someone said that Elon isn't God. I'm not saying that, if Elon predicted it, then it's going to come true. What I was trying to say is that the CEOs don't usually make these crazy and bold predictions because it can cost them their career, right? I think usually they try to stay on the more conservative side and then actually outperform whenever it comes to the fundamentals.
Well, there is an interesting, I think, nuance on that point. And just building on what Riley said, when you invest in these innovative companies, there is always a portion of that investment that is the call option on the future ideas or products that the company can come up with in the future, because they are innovative companies. And so it is a byproduct or a feature of an innovative company. For, let's say I invest in SoFi today, I am also investing in the potential future products that they're going to come out with. 2 years ago, I don't think anybody would have expected SoFi to have a buy now, pay later product, or a lot of the products that they've rolled out. 2 years from now, they will be rolling out other products that maybe are not on our radar at all. AI is very buzzwordy right now. That could be a potential direction. And so the point is that there are the things that we can measure and extrapolate from that to say, okay, here's the demographics, here's the growth rates, here's the valuation metrics, and here's where SoFi is going on an existing products roadmap. And then there is that sort of unknown factor of saying, well, they could be coming out with all of these, different innovative products that we just don't know about. But we know that it exists. Like, we don't know what the actual products are, but we know that there is going to be innovative products in the future because it is an innovative company.
Right. Now, sorry, what was I going to add to that? Yeah, I don't know. I think that it is hard to bet. I know that you can push innovation and say that they're going to keep doing it. I think maybe Riley's right in the sense that there's not a number that you can put on this, to say like, oh, we're going to grow this much, or how is the market going to react? But I think it's still fun to think about and make predictions, because it's not hurting me to do so, and it's a fun.
To be honest, I think your projection was conservative. If they operate and they actually do what they're trying to do and make the one-stop shop app that nobody in America is even close to, like no banking app has ever done anything innovative in 10 years. Banking app exclusively, like fintech apps like Venmo and stuff like that, like sure, but yeah, dude, in 5 to 10 years, we could see something completely different than what we see now. So if I could be doing a social network, they could be taking on different types of like products, like sending money around the world, which is something that banks don't do inside their apps at all. There's so many ways to like make money in this like space, and putting it all under one house is just going to make it more sticky than any other app or product out there. So depending on how well they fix their back end right now, and how well their developers are at building this technology within regulations, I don't know what we could see, but I'm hoping it's big.
So So adding to what Nodo said, and then maybe we can jump on to the acquisition, which if people don't know, that's quite exciting as well. But just adding to what Nodo said about the growth rate, there was a CEO, Dan Schulman of PayPal, which is another stock that I like to think about as well. He made some very bold bets whenever it came to PayPal during COVID-19, right? And his guidances for the future of the company were so bullish, like extreme growth rates, that the stock had ran up into valuations never before seen. And then it turned out that those growth rates came to an end very quickly, and that the growth expected from the pandemic dried up much faster than they expected. That caused him his extreme bullish ideas is maybe an idea of why he's retiring now, or whether it's a forced push out by the board of directors. So I don't think Nodo would be dumb enough to say something so crazy that might force investors to rethink his ability to project the company going forward. Because right now I feel like he's doing an amazing job, and he has the full support of all of his investors. So I don't know. That might change.
Are you worried about like that actually happening? Is that like why you bring it up?
Well, yeah. I mean, do I think that this is going to be a top 10 financial institution in the next 3 to 5 years? I don't see a road to that, even 1%. But Nodo does, and that's weird. 3 to 5 years.
Hey. Well, yeah, not in 3 to 5 years. Definitely not in 3 to 5 years.
You're going to need to bump up more than 400,000 users every quarter.
Yeah, you never know what happens with the macro, right? I mean, we saw some crazy stuff happen in 2021. If we have another thing like that, I mean, Tesla went to $1 trillion, right?
It also depends on how he's measuring it. He's definitely not measuring it by market cap. He's probably measuring it by like deposits or something. But even
he's measuring it by assets under management.
So let's assume that he actually does believe that. How do you think he's going to go about doing that? Is it?
I think it would have to be I think it has to be because Galileo is high margin SaaS recurring revenue, which demands a premium in the stock market writ large. So the banking side, again, the initial reason I bought in was never for that. That was never exciting to me, even though now it's become more exciting as I've used the product. What's exciting is this Galileo product, this AWS of fintech stuff.
Yeah, but that doesn't help them on the financial institution side. Galileo is B2B. It helps him as a company and as a market cap to grow. But if he's measuring against financial institutions, the benchmark is different.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking to justify Tannor or Nodo's idea of the stock getting higher. I mean, if they can really turn Galileo into something big, that to me is compounded growth that actually has operating margins that aren't hit as hard from the banking sector.
Or if SoFi is known as the back end for large traditional banks, and that's an incredible moat that deserves a premium in the stock.
Yeah, and they have competition, right? When Stripe goes public, they're going to be compared to Stripe, and Stripe is everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of different areas of competition, but if Nodo can pull that off, that's where I think Riley's stock estimates are.
I agree with you with the Galileo point 100%. The question is, how does the banking side of SoFi get to top 10 financial institution in 5 years?
I don't think it happens in 5 years. I don't think that happens.
And number of years.
Yeah, it's not market cap. It's assets under management. Yeah. That's the weird part.
Yeah.
Have y'all been?
Go ahead, Riley.
Sorry. If you pull up the last slide, FedNow starting tomorrow. Shoot, is that the last slide? Oh, there it is. Okay, so starting tomorrow, registration is starting for all banks in the U.S. to register for FedNow access, which should be coming later this June and July, which will be the first time in American history where banks federally can send money instantaneously. They're using basically like a token authorization type of two-factor authenticate. I don't know, some sort of authentication service provided by FedNow so that they can send money instantaneously, which is gonna, like, this alone is gonna have just insane consequences, or not consequences, like it's just going to change the way that America does business all around. And technologies are going to be built off of it, or technologies are going to synergize with it. And for all intents and purposes, I think SoFi is going to be registering with a lot of people tomorrow, whenever registration goes live. But if you have instantaneous movement of money, how easy is it going to be to leave your old bank and go to SoFi? You know, I don't know how the future is going to look in the whenever that's going to. Maybe these big banks are going to lose deposits faster than I think.
So tell me though, do you think that that's why people aren't coming to SoFi now? That
I
it's
mean,
too hard to move their money?
I think that is a big problem. I mean, I think it. Well, if you look at what is it? We had him on our pod before. Michael Rowland. He actually has his money with another institution, and it was kind of a pain in the butt because he had to move his money from that bank to SoFi, but he had to also keep that bank open because it was set up on auto pays that are annual, and some of them that he doesn't remember anymore. So there is some like friction in order to move from banks. But I mean, what the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and FedNow is doing is making it easier to move money in America, and it might be easier to move bank accounts in the future as well.
Yeah, but everybody's going to have access to, like, all the financial institutions are going to have access to FedNow, right? So it's
and businesses.
It's not a moat for SoFi.
It's not a moat, but it does increase competition. No longer are the days where like you have a reason to move because it's easy. Like if you only had access to a horse and buggy and you got a car, you'd be more likely to go visit some long distance place. I know this is horrible.
Sure, but like FedNow doesn't help you with like your automated direct deposits and your automated payments. It just helps you transfer money from person A to person B.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know.
That doesn't mean that
I was
it's
trying
not
to. I don't really have a big like opinion on this.
So
I was kind of like wondering what you guys think.
The interesting angle to this, which I was getting a couple of comments on the highlight video that we were talking a little bit about introduction to FedNow in the last weekly pod, and the comments were saying that FedNow is going to be the start of increased centralization in the government's ability to control finances, like CBDCs. More scrutiny, more eyeballs, more control around these payments that go back and forth. I think that's interesting as well, because it's essentially like the government is essentially a new player in that space, because they're now facilitating, or the Fed is now facilitating all of these payments. They would have all of these, they would have an increased visibility into that.
I would be very careful around that rabbit hole, just because when I was doing my research, I watched a lot of YouTube videos on the FedNow, and half of them are people that thought like doomsday was coming and that like the government's out to get them, and a ton of that stuff. For all intents and purposes, after reading like their website and what they're trying to do, it's just going to make it easier for people not have to wait 3 or 4 business days for their actual money to come in. It actually reduces a ton of scams as well. Because a lot of banks will front you the money before it's actually deposited in, and then scammers like to say, okay, we'll send that money over to somebody else, and then the check comes and it doesn't clear, and you're left holding the bag. But yeah,
I think that the FedNow, like this is going to really increase the speed of money transfers. I mean, no, long gone are the days of T+2, but will this help people know the name of SoFi as a brand? I don't know. I even then, like if that is truly what the projections are and why he thinks that we can grow so fast, what I think it could be though, is if we actually become the sponsoring banks for other fintechs, because this could actually be huge. If we actually go around to a bunch of these banks that we are dealing with Galileo and Technisys and all these companies, and then say, store your money with us and we'll actually give you a deal, that would increase our assets under management extremely quickly, right? Because, you know, we could bring over Robinhood and Chime and all of these people instead of banking with Sutton Bank or all of these companies. But even then, all of those companies all put together would probably be worth like 100 billion or something like this, because all of those sponsoring banks all have under $10 billion of assets under management. So how many, you know, Sutton banks or the U.S. Bancorp Bank, or sorry, the Bancorp Bank, not U.S. Bancorp.
And you're talking about the Durbin Amendment being under 10 billion.
Yeah, so they all have to be, you know, we probably know of 7 or 8 different sponsoring banks that a lot of these fintechs use, and they're all under $10 billion of assets under management. So even if we were to get every last penny of all of those companies, it still doesn't get us to $400 billion. You know what I mean? So I don't know where Nodo's coming from, but I do actually think that that's something that maybe we didn't consider, is bringing over client money from other institutions. Which, to Amit's point, would be Galileo.
One last thing. I know Amit was about to speak, but what really is interesting to me is, like, think of the Silicon Valley Bank. If FedNow was available, like, what would a bank run look like if all payments were instantaneous? You know, or would a bank be able to handle that risk? Because usually they have like a buffer zone of, like, when deposits and everything are going out. Maybe these big banks aren't ready for this big change as much as, say, SoFi is. So maybe SoFi will be able to actually utilize this technology like faster than these big banks, because maybe there's too much risk with allowing their users to send money instantaneously.
I don't think we should conflate instantaneous payments with liquidity issues. You know, even if we had instantaneous payments, Jesus, that's a tongue twister. What could that have done for Silicon Valley Bank? I don't know how much it could have done, because that was fundamentally a liquidity issue from the bank. It was not necessarily like that individuals were getting stuck in sending payments back and forth. So I think that, like, FedNow is really good from a quality of life utility perspective for the end consumer, but I don't know how much is going to actually, like, revitalize the entire banking industry and make it a perfect competition. Sure, it's a step in the right direction, I guess, but, you know, I think it's a nice to have. It's not like a game changer, in my opinion.
Bro, if we just get the 5X, I think we'll all be fine, right? Like, we'll be happy, right? Everyone in this chat will be happy. If we get to $25, it'll be great. It was up to $6 today, ran up a nice, like, 70%. Like,
SoFi or Nodo will get his first tranche.
Yeah, and the only people that won't be happy are the ones that have high averages, which is why you got a fucking DCA at this point, right?
Wait,
like,
why wouldn't they be happy? $25 is like all-time highs, dude.
But if they have high averages,
they're still in the green.
Yeah,
you
but you're not happy. If your average is 24, you are not happy that it got back to 25. You're, like, content. Like, that's my thing. That's the only people that will be upset at that.
We're at $6, man. If your average is 24 and it gets to 25, I am thanking Jesus.
You are, because your average is not 24.
Even if it was, man, I'm not losing money.
Wait, no. That's the dumbest thing I've heard in my entire fucking life. If your average was $24 and a stock goes to 25, you're happy with your gains on that stock?
It's not with my.
That's the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life.
How does that make sense? If you have a $24 average and you wait a year, 2 years, and you're not DCAing, and then the stock goes to 25, and you still have a $24 average, how are you happy with how the stock is?
You're not setting a lot of permissions anymore, man.
You're setting a lot of permissions on this. You're negative 80%.
But you don't make any money off you make $1 in gains. How is that exciting to anybody?
Yeah, but you're adding all these permissions, like you can't DCA and you can't.
No, I'm not saying you can't DCA. I'm saying if you didn't DCA, that's why I said, which is why I don't know why Tevis pushed back.
Yeah,
the only people that are mad are the ones who didn't DCA. That's what I said.
You're so right, Amit. If my average was $24, I would rather have it be $6. You're right.
Yeah.
No. Obviously, you wouldn't rather have it. No. This is not a question of rather or it's a question of, are you happy? And I'm just saying, I don't think anyone's like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy the stock's at 25, because your average is 24. That's why I said you're only mad if we all get a 5X. I think it's great. We don't need to get a fucking 16X like Tannor is saying. That's great. 5X is really hard. But you would be upset if your average was 24, which is why now is the time to DCA.
Emotions and investing do not mix well. I do not care if SoFi gets to $25 because I know it's already going to go there. I wouldn't invest in SoFi if it's only at 5x.
Look, I'll be happy if I get a 5x out of this. I mean, I think any stock you get a 5x.
You sound
out
so
of.
pessimistic. I feel like this is going to be way bigger than.
I hope
5x.
it is. I mean, look, I think it can as well, and that's why Tanner's video made a lot of sense. But if things are bad over the next couple of years, macro still stuck, so whatever happens, and we get to 25, I will be very happy.
And
I know a lot of just like for Palantir, bro. There's a lot of shareholders that are not going to be happy when it gets to $25 because most people DCA'd heavily. I know this at 21, so like they're looking for 100. You know, that's the difference.
I just want to state also with the video is that out of everyone here, I am probably the most conservative. I mean, these guys are some super bulls. I'm over here, super bulls of SoFi. So Riley with his emotional comment, I don't know if I fully agree. I think you're pretty emotional with a lot of your positions, but
really, how so?
Well, I mean, you held Open Door for a long time during.
I don't sell anything. I try not to sell anything. It's Open Door is just if it goes to zero, that's fine.
That's not an emotional play.
All right, guys.
No, it's just a bet. I'm young. I can take risks.
Look, Open Door can still come back. Open Door still has a shot. I wouldn't rule it out yet.
I really, yeah. I mean, like they're the best at what they do. But I don't want to talk about Open Door.
Okay,
I don't want to talk about Open Door. I just think it was some pushback on the emotional thing. I find you would have agreed with me.
But that's the thing though. Like Open Door can go to zero, and I wouldn't care. Like I have no emotion tied to Open Door. I just think that there is a possibility.
It's a good counterpoint.
We're 37 minutes in. Can we talk about the main fucking story this week? I really want to
take it away.
We were waiting for our guest to join, but I guess he's not here yet. So we
don't have Palantir Weekly this.
No, we were having someone else join, but I don't know if Riley, you can text him and see if he's coming. But
I mean, we can go over 10 p.m. right?
11:05 ish, yeah, 11:10.
Sorry, 11 p.m.
Yeah, 11:10. We can do that.
Okay, go ahead, Tevis.
Yeah, so in news, well, I mean, our guest is going to join soon, but news broke this week on Wednesday, I believe it is, due to some research from several members in the community, but Bender posted about this on Reddit. Bender, who has posted many pieces of SoFi news leaks in the past around SoFi acquiring a top-rated mortgage lender and servicer. We've been talking about this on this podcast, and if you'll recall, after the Q4 earnings, I basically said that, or the consensus, let's say, was that SoFi, having found a new partner for home loans, that partner would be a prime acquisition target. And so it seems as though that SoFi has gone ahead with that move. Terms of that deal are not disclosed yet. An official announcement is expected from SoFi. Of course, the make or break factor of this is going to be the terms of the deal. But I initially took this as, just unsubstantiated rumors, but we actually got the articles of merger posted on Twitter. I'll send you that link, and then we can look at that document together. But yeah, so basically SoFi acquired this other company, which is Windham Capital. And Windham Capital is, basically this 20, 30-year-old mortgage company. They have about, if I remember correctly, 19,500. I mean, you can just go on their website.
Second slide.
Okay. Right. So 19,500 loans funded in 2021, $6.5 billion in loan volume in 2021. We don't have a lot of these stats. It's not a public company. The question really is, how much did they buy this company for?
Let's do some guesses.
Well, so let's talk about what this company does. I mean, it's a mortgage lender, but the way it differentiates itself, well, basically on their website, is that they do a lot of automation. So if you can go to the I don't know. The next two slides talk about like what they actually do, but they use something called RPAs, which are robotic process automations, and what they claim is that they can do like twice as amount of loans per full-time employee than the rest of the industry, eliminating delays. They eliminated 1.5 million clicks, eliminated through their old way of doing things. They say that it's really efficient. 2.7 million robotic processes performed monthly. Time saved, 4,000 employee hours saved per month via robotic processes. So people are saying this is a tech company. I kind of disagree, because RPAs are kind of like everybody uses them now, especially in mortgage lending. I think this company is just advertising it a lot.
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
I mean, look, at this point, if you're dealing with a lot of these numbers and you don't at least have some baseline level processes in place, then that's like some big, like every financial institution out there has some baseline process. The problem is a lot of them are bogged down by legacy infrastructure. They're bogged down by redundancies. They're bogged down by red tape and so on and so forth. So, I do think that, this is nice to have, and it meshes well with SoFi. The original post by Bender was speculating as to this being an acqui-hiring situation where they're just sort of taking the team because it was already pre-built and then implementing all of SoFi's processes and their tech stack and their ways of working. And so it's essentially getting them much further ahead than they would have otherwise if they were to grow organically. So but I do think that the automation point, while it's good, I don't think is like the key point here. I do think that on a macro point, and I also just to plug, made a video about this yesterday, and just going to repeat myself a little bit in that video. That's why I bring it up. But I basically said in that video that what this signals is really strong. I said last week in the SoFi Weekly podcast that SoFi raising their savings APY to 4%, SoFi increasing their FDIC insurance to $2 million, Nodo buying shares hand over fist. All of these were signaling strength in a time of weak macro economics, like with Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic Bank, Credit Suisse, all of these banks left and right seeming to wobble. SoFi is taking advantage of that. And imagine now a company whom literally, guys, 2 weeks ago, the main concern was whether SoFi is going to have a bank run. 2 weeks later, they're out here acquiring other companies on the cheap. And the last point is more significant, right? They're acquiring this cheap. I know, I think Kyle brought up speculation on as to how much could they have paid for this, saying that, Technisys was like 1 billion, Galileo was 1.2 billion, and he was thinking that this would be 500 million to 1 billion. I actually think that in this macroeconomic time that we're in, 2 to 3 price to sales ratio is my ballpark of where I'd be. So my ballpark, Tanner, to answer your earlier question, is 100 to 200 million max. The other question is like, is it all stock or is it in cash? But the wider point to take away is that SoFi is making big moves, and they're moves that you would expect the winners of the space to be making when you're thinking of consolidation in that banking space. The old Buffett expression, right? Buy when there's blood on the streets. That's what SoFi's doing, right? So they're not in a position where they're one of those companies that is struggling to stay alive. They're actually thriving from this situation, taking advantage of the deals out there in the market.
I personally disagree.
Okay.
So the numbers that Kyle gave, I actually don't think he was crazy on. He was projecting, the first numbers that came out was $180 million in revenue, which places his $500 million bet, 500 million bet on, not crazy. I think it'll be a 5 to 6 times price to sales. And the reason is that we're not thriving. Our home loan sector is dying. Without this acquisition, it would probably hit near zero in terms of new originations. And we've been very open about the idea that we need to go out and acquire something. I don't think that this is a blood in the streets sort of idea. So if we're speculating on the revenue, I've seen 40 million, I've seen 80 million, I've seen 180 million. My bet would be that it's probably 5 to 6x. We don't buy companies cheap. That's the truth. That Nodo has not been the one to buy a company. Look at the Technisys price. Like that was unbelievable.
But those weren't in 2022. Those were in 2020, right? I mean, like
that was 2021. I think we were $11 a share. So it wasn't like the height of the market.
So okay, there's a couple of discrepancies because first of all, we don't really have an accurate view of what the revenue is. The numbers that have been sort of found online have been, I think, 40, 80, and then 180 were the three numbers that were floated around. And so depending on the multiple you give, like if you say 5x,
5 to 6.
Okay, so let's say just say 5x times 4, that's 200 million versus 180 million, times 5, that's like almost a billion, right? Like so there's like a huge range there depending on what the revenue number is. So I don't know. We can argue it from a multiple perspective. I just think that 5 to 6 in a market where tech companies have fallen 80%, like those are multiples that I would expect. So full-time day job, lead product for a SaaS business. And naturally that business is like, we are looking at VC metrics all day long in terms of what we can command in terms of a multiple. And that business right now for SaaS is around like 8 to 10. I would say for, other companies that are not profitable, companies that have been hurt from 2022, that have fallen maybe 80%, and that have liquidity issues, that have maybe a limited runway, but they have innovative technology. That's where I would put maybe a 5x multiple or a 6x multiple. But this company that doesn't really seem to have any, let's say, significant redeeming qualities from a technology perspective, that's why I was putting it as 2 to 3. What, you're going to say the RPD is the thing that commands, 2x more of multiple?
Well, yeah, because we can originate mortgage. Like there's nothing we're buying them for their
Sure,
tech.
but I understand. But there's like mortgage companies left and right.
How do you know that?
But I'm saying they're not a mortgage company. They're a tech company.
I don't think so.
But
because
okay, what makes them a tech company? Man, every single mortgage company out there has some technology in their process. It doesn't make them a tech company. I can have a fucking ChatGPT integration. It doesn't make me an AI company.
I know, but why did we need to go from
get out of here?
Why did we need to go from a mortgage company, a lower.com, drop that partnership, and then
they dropped us? They got acquired.
We dropped. They changed the billing on us, and we dropped them.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
My point is, they're not the only mortgage player out there, and again, operating from a place of logic.
Anyone can write mortgages. We could be a private lender and completely sign mortgages to anyone that wants them, right? Sure. As long as that we actually risk out the deal. Why would we spend money to acquire someone else that has less clientele than us? And like, why are we buying them? Why are we so hurting for a partner other than their technology? This is a tech company.
So a few things I know about the company from reading is they worked on their technology for 6 years. They don't give any information on how they use data-driven insights. They do talk heavily about their RPAs, which is robotic process automations. That is something that's not exclusive to this company, Windham Capital. A ton of other mortgage lenders use it. Basically, it's like if I'm on a phone call with a customer that wants to take out a mortgage, they call me, I enter in all their information. And then whenever I enter in all their information, I press go, and then all the software robots on my computer will go and fill out all the necessary applications for this specific user on my desktop while I just sit down and do nothing. So the robot takes care of it. It's not something that's a major technological type of product. It's just robots that you can program.
But it is whenever they're ranking first.
Let me just say one thing, okay? Sofi had 18 months This is what they said in Q4. 18 months to find a new home lender. Now, I'm just trying to use best logic with the facts that we're given, right? There's two options. Either they're buying this from a position of weakness or from a position of strength. They had 18 months to pick a new partner. There's more than one. I mean, mortgages are not necessarily an oligopoly out there, right? Especially in America, there's lots of different mortgage providers, and we're coming off of a time in 2022 when mortgages as a whole have been absolutely decimated. Rates are sky high, right? Mortgage businesses are hurting. And so if I think about that, well, 18 months plus SoFi is in a position where they have cash on hand. They have their pick of the litter, let's say, on mortgage players. To me, that signals that they're coming from a position of strength, that they have purchasing power, that they have leverage to lower that multiple because of where the macro is. And so that's where I'm coming from. When I checked out this company, I was like, well, that's great, the RPD process, but it's not like a Lemonade, for example, is a company that their entire DNA is weaving AI and data-driven decisions into their process. Windham Capital is like a mortgage provider first, tech company second.
Yeah.
And there is speculation that they fired 500 people in the last 6 months.
Yeah, they probably didn't do that out of fun. Like, they're probably hurting, just like everybody else.
But that is speculation. There's not proof. Just saying that.
I'm sure that could be a thing, but I think there's a difference between looking at like a Lemonade, for example, on public markets, what people are actually valuing this company today, and what a single individual could go in and buy the entire company for.
Yeah, I'm just comparing it to Lemonade for the product. Like Lemonade that's a tech company first to me.
I know, and I give you a ton of leeway. Like I'm not stating that you did something wrong here. I'm just saying, but I've seen that example brought up a bunch of times now, Lemonade, and how cheap their valuation is and how tech forward they are. But no one's buying that full company for that price. It wouldn't happen. It would I would venture to say it would probably be more than 5x or even 10x what it's valued at today if you were to buy it out in one shot. And these types of multiples are not unheard of. Like if the tech is there, which I think it's there for, we're not buying it for their, we're not buying Windham for their client base. We're buying it for their tech. And I know that you guys want to say that this technology is similar to other players, but Windham is coming up as the #1 ranked, mortgage things. You guys all saw the same things in the same chats that we're in. How is that possible that they're being ranked higher than lower.com and all of these other people that are using the same processes? How is it possible that they're getting, the cuts on their industry standards? They're obviously doing things that, whether they're, proprietary for their business or they just do it better because of a company culture, SoFi wants them specifically. And we've just been extremely public about buying a company. I don't think that's from a place of space. I think that's from a place of this industry of our sector is literally dying, it's going to zero. And so we need to pick someone up.
So you like this acquisition, Tannor, but you think we might have paid too much?
No, not even too much. And maybe we're arguing two different points. I'm just thinking it wasn't a steal. Nothing in SoFi's history says that we're bargain hunters. We buy crap for very large margins. Look at Technisys. How much extra did we pay on that company versus how much it's, like 15x? Like,
so what's your number then, Tannor? Like what's your like range? Like
I
said,
I don't know how much they make, so it's impossible for me to get. So I'm saying 5 to 6.
Chris Hager says he would be comfortable with anything under 300 million. That would be a good cheap. I don't know what his DD is, but he does a lot. He says he'd be comfortable.
Cash position is what, like 1.2, something like that? Tannor, you'd know.
Yeah, it's a private company, so it is hard to
our cash
do
position.
this.
Like SoFi's, I mean.
Yeah, like 1.2.
That's where Chris Hager's number is coming from. It's a percentage of our total cash. Because like if they blew their entire cash position on this one deal, then it's like extra risk you add, right?
Yeah. You may be right on the tech. They don't advertise it on their website. They just talk a lot about the RPA, and they don't go into depth of like how they do it. RPAs are not really that like advanced anybody can replicate that kind of stuff by just hiring a third-party provider and having them just do it.
So why did SoFi acquire them at all?
Exactly. That's the problem. I do know that for SoFi, if you look at their Glassdoor reviews, they're out of all of the job offerings, the worst rated job offering at SoFi is loan originators, people that pick up phones and talk to people and have to enter in data because it's just a lot of work they have to do. So these RPAs might be kind of like, if they are actually better than like industry standard, like maybe they are looking towards that because they want to expand their loan originations. Because if that tech will allow them to double their loan originations, that would be actually kind of crazy because they are receiving a lot of deposits now, you know.
And I mean, sorry, Tevis, just really quick, just to give you some credit. You could be right in the fact that we probably, if this tech is as, you know, useless as the research is showing from Chris Hager and whoever did it. I mean, I truly didn't do that sort of deep dive. It could be that this was such a cheap acquisition that it was cheaper than to just build out our own tech. And in that case, I will be wrong, but it's just not in our history to do that. We don't have any, like, it wasn't the height of the market whenever we bought Technisys. It wasn't the height of the market whenever we bought Galileo. We buy expensive companies, and for the right team, you know what? I think also Nodo will go after a certain company. I think if he really, really likes management, I believe that he's a big fan of Derek White and Miguel, and I think that's a big part of his strategy as well.
Yeah,
but that is speculation, 100%.
My whole point is not like SoFi buys high quality companies, therefore they're just like throwing extra money at them. Technisys and Galileo are very specific niche tech companies that dealt in like infrastructure, like tech infrastructure in general, right? So it's like you have to just take. I mean, okay, so let's just say that, hey, the multiple is going to be a byproduct of the revenue, which we don't know right now, and so we can leave it at that. Amit, can you put up the link I just sent in the private chat?
Chris is here if y'all want to invite him on for a quick take before we go.
Here we go. Hello.
Hey, sorry.
No worries.
Thanks.
Chris, was this a good move or not a good move?
Ultimately, it depends on what you guys are talking about, which is how much we pay for him. But I think it was a good move. I think, well, here's what I think, and I might be wrong. I think that long term, it's a great move because eventually when mortgages come back, right, then we'll have the tech already ready to go. It's kind of like the S curve that he talked about in the last whatever it was conference, right, where he talked about how we spent the last 2 years, 3 years getting our credit card offering right, and now we're ready to finally scale it. I think it's the same thing with mortgages. They're going to spend the next year or two getting it so that it's really dialed in so that they can hit the accelerator. So I think that number one. Number two, so I've done quite a bit of DD trying to figure out. I think that $180 million revenue is probably at the peak. I think that's in 2021. Originations, if you look at like UWMC and Rocket Mortgage and Loan Depot and just across the industry, they're down about 50 to 60% across in terms of originations. And they're not getting higher revenues per originations than they were previously. I kind of looked at a bunch of different metrics because we don't know the revenue numbers. I looked at originations and kind of or benchmarked public companies. So those three: Rocket, United Wholesale Mortgage, and then Loan Depot. The ones who get the highest, so Rocket Mortgage gets the highest in terms of valuation. So how much they like their market cap per origination, if you think of it as like a price per origination valuation, they get much higher than than any of the other two. But even if you assume that that Windham Capital has lost about 50% of their origination, so they were at 6.5 billion originations in 2021, and it's probably come down, so it's in the low 3 billions. And if you look at kind of those numbers, you're looking at something like about a $430 million acquisition if you give them the same valuation per origination as Rocket Mortgage has. So when I like looked at Kyle White's number from 500 to 1.5 billion, I just don't see it. That's me personally. Like I think that they're and I would guess their actual revenue, again, based on kind of what these other three companies get in terms of like revenue per origination. Their revenue is like at a maximum probably like 150 million, and that's being really, really generous, I think,
No, I
for
don't.
2022.
Just so then, in case you didn't miss, like none of us are trying to speculate on the actual revenue because I don't think we like you said, we don't know if that's peak or current or whatever.
But we do know the
If you were to put a
originations, and
price
you
to
can
sales-
kind of back out a revenue number from that.
Yeah, we're just talking multiples.
Yeah, what do you think on a price to sales multiple of what we paid
don't
for?
think-
That I think is maybe better.
So, I mean, if you look at, again, those other big originators, like, again, Rocket has the best price per sales, and their price per sales is 2.2. Right? So
Yeah.
even if you're paying, I can't imagine us paying more than 4. Like UWMC, their price per sales is like 1.1, and Loan Depot is 0.15. Now, Loan Depot is burning a lot of cash, right? They're distressed, and that's why they they've got negative earnings, and they had positive earnings in 2021, but in 2022 they've lost a lot of money. But again, so Windham has laid off over 50% of their workforce. At some point, they had 700 plus employees, and now they've only got, according to their website, and now they've only got 350. So they're not killing it, right? Like, or otherwise they probably, the last thing that, and this guy's an founder, right? The CEO is the person who founded the company back in 2001. I'm sure the people that he hires, right?
How old is he?
I don't know that answer. He had only worked in the industry for like, I don't know, it was like 5 or 10 years or less before he founded this company. So he was pretty new in the industry, and then he founded this, and they've done pretty good.
Chris, you think all cash?
I think all cash. I would be disappointed if it was dilution, or mostly cash and maybe a little bit of stock. But if it's all stock, I will dislike this deal regardless, because I think that SoFi right now is super undervalued. And why would you use stock to pay for a deal when you yourself think that your stock isn't worth what it should be? And Nodo obviously doesn't think the stock is worth what it should be because he's buying a bunch of it, right? I don't know why you go and spend $5 million of your own money to buy stock, and then use that same like stock valuation that you think is low to then buy a company when you've got $1.4 billion sitting in cash. And I think they've actually been pulling money out in terms of like, they could be using that cash for other things, right? They could be using it to collateralize loans, but instead they've been building up their cash reserves. My opinion on that is that they've been doing that because they are ready to acquire something. They knew that this is like, they want to be able to have the flexibility to do these types of acquisitions, and they want to be able to do them in cash. I think that's why we have 1.4 billion in cash. I could be wrong. This is just my
Chris, why did we buy this company? Is it for the tech? What is the diamond in the rough that's Anthony noticed all with Windham Capital? What do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think that the tech is forward thinking. I think that more than anything else, it's just like, especially in a distressed environment, it's easy to acquire things like this. Like Ally did the same thing. When Ally was growing, they did a lot of these kind of small acquisitions and mergers. Well, they weren't mergers, they were acquisitions, which this is too, right? And they acquired all these kind of small niche companies that did something really well, and then they took that and they made a bigger company out of it. I think SoFi is in the same vein, and in some ways that's kind of scary, because you'd rather have organic growth rather than acquisition growth, because that is more difficult. There are certain companies though that have excelled at that, right? Like Salesforce. Salesforce is an example of, they've acquired a bunch of companies, and every single one of them has, well, not every single one, but the vast majority of them have ended up being huge, great acquisitions for the company.
PayPal
And
is another good name in that space as well.
Sorry?
PayPal is another great name I find for acquisition growth.
Yeah. So, and again, the jury remains out on Technisys and Galileo. I think that they were probably good acquisitions. I trust management, but I think it's easier to, especially if things are at a depressed price, which I hope they are, and they should be right now. It seems like doing that makes more sense to me.
It's interesting, Chris, that you brought up the fluctuation in headcount or layoffs, I guess, put another way. Because I know in the original Reddit post, Bender was speculating as to an acqui-hiring, which is essentially when a company acquires another company primarily for its talent rather than anything else. So I can't imagine it being a great morale in that place if such a large portion was let go. So probably defeats that thesis if that's the case.
A lot of it is segmented. Like they have offices in different places. Like they'll have a place in Dallas, a place in another place. So it might not affect morale as much as we think.
Can I bring up really quickly if we have to go soon? Are you trying to close up a bit or?
Yeah, we got till 11:15. I was going to share Tevis's thing real quick, and then you can say what you want to say. So this is the articles of the merger right here.
Yeah, so all I was going to say on this was that it sort of formalized this move. This was these articles were filed earlier yesterday. Now, zoom in on that signature, Amit. This was interesting to me. Chad Borton's signature is on here. He's the president.
I can tell you why that is.
Yeah, please do so.
So this was filed in North Carolina, and in North
Can
Carolina,
you explain who Chad Borton is? Sorry.
sorry.
To the people.
The president, as opposed to Nodo, who's the CEO.
So he's the president of SoFi Bank. And so the reason why, though, because I looked this up because I wanted to double check it before, because I've got an article that I submitted on all this, and I wanted to make sure and go to the source and make sure this was legit. So the reason why is because this was filed in North Carolina, and in North Carolina, the active SoFi, like their business is SoFi Lending, the one that they have. That they've like registered with the Secretary of State, and the person who's in charge of SoFi Lending is Chad Borton, according to their filings. And so I think that's the reason why, is because according to North Carolina, Chad Borton is the leader of SoFi Lending Corp.
Got it. One of the main reasons I brought this up, actually, Amit, if you can just throw it back up exactly where you had it, is because on the articles of merger, that one document, it said April 3rd, 2023 is going to be the effective date of those articles, which is Monday. In other words, that like where my mind went was that SoFi is going to officially announce on Monday. Is everybody sort of on that same thought, or is there no correlation there?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure enough. I don't think it's going to be too much of a big deal. Hopefully they tell us the price.
You heard it here you heard it here. Oh my God. You heard it here first, folks. SoFi Weekly got it first. Oh my God.
Actually, Chris got it first. Chris was like the first guy
yeah.
to get this.
That's true.
And Bender and Vadim.
Well, yes, all those guys. Yep.
It was
someone
actually kind of fun.
Yeah,
So
there was someone
let me-
in our SoFi group, if you guys remember directly, and I guess his friend has a mortgage with this company, and they said, we got acquired, and it was the first email that came through or whatever. And then people thought the email was fake. I mean, who knows? A lot of DD went into actually finding out, and then people just realized that if you just try to apply it at this company, that SoFi comes up.
Yeah, they're not doing a great job of hiding it.
No.
Okay. Tanner, what did you want to say?
Just I found it funny that whenever Chris appeared on the show, Darth Chris with a K appeared in the chat to say
like Batman and Joker,
right? And so he said it's a pivot. Prime personal loan market likely drying up. And as bad as he's actually saying that, I do actually think that it is a pivot. I do believe that in rising rates that our personal loan market's going to do very well. In falling rates, which I guess it's speculative of how soon that's going to come up, but that the student loan market and the home loan market do very well.
Yeah,
and so
can
I
you
think
guys see my screen real quick?
It's just them setting up the alley-oop for next year, Tanner.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. You're going to have to
Zoom in, yeah.
This is your Windham capital account, right?
Yeah. So no, this is what you saw. Let's see. Can you see that better? So this is what the website was that morning. Zoom and enhance. All right.
Yeah, you're good.
It looked like this. The interesting thing is we actually saw in real time that it went to this. All of a sudden it turned SoFi blue.
Oh
And
wow.
if you zoom in on the bottom, but it still had the Windham Capital logo. And if you zoom in on the bottom, shoot, come on, stupid thing.
You see that? You see all the
It
way. There you go. Yeah.
it had the Windham logo, but it also had this SoFi Bank link, and the NMLS changed to SoFi's, and then like 5 minutes later, it changed over to this one that had the SoFi logo.
Dude, if
It
they're
was
making
fun
Wow.
if they're
to
making
keep
code
refreshing it in real
changes,
time.
if they're making code changes on the live environment like that, I'm gonna go out on a limb and question their tech right now, Riley.
Well,
Also,
Bender
might have been
pointed
a
this out.
mistake. They probably didn't want to show it, right?
I think it was a mistake because they took down the link that the apply button is gone from their website now that linked to that page.
The SoFi community is too quick.
Yeah.
But Bender even realized, even as this transition was happening, that we recently just switched over to that. You saw it there, Blend, which is, I guess, the new tech that we're using. Which, you know, they realized that switched over, I think about a month ago or something. So this acquisition was sort of in talks, I guess, for a while now.
What is Blend, if we have time?
It's a white label mortgage provider.
Oh, I thought it was Binder.
That's insurance.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So, Chris, overall, you think this was, as my camera dies, you think overall this was a good deal? It obviously depends how much we pay for it, but you are bullish on this happening. You think Nodo's moving in the right direction with this?
With that caveat, yes. Like if it comes out and it's 500 million and it's stock, I will be very upset. If it's all cash and it's under 300 million, I think the over under is right around 300 million. That's what I think. And if it's under that, like, I'd feel pretty good about that.
Tannor, is 300 million in line with your expectations of, or not expectation, but like idea of we're paying these premiums, or it's way under what you think it is?
Zero idea. I think a 5 to 6 times price to sales will make sense in my head. So if they make 40 million, that sounds expensive. If they make, 80 million, it'll be a great price. I think a 5 to 6 times price to sales is my bet.
Okay.
And we will figure all this out on Monday, right?
I think looking at Rocket Mortgage or one of these companies, and I'm okay to be wrong. I mean, it means that we paid a better price. I'd be happy. But looking at Rocket Mortgage or some of these companies on public markets and looking at their price to sales and thinking that's what you can acquire Rocket Mortgage for, it's not going to happen. No one can buy Rocket Mortgage for that price. You would need to buy it at such a large multiple on what it's trading for on public markets to actually acquire all stock, right? The whole board has to agree on it. A founder of a 20+ year company has to give away the ownership rights of his company. We're paying a good price for it.
Amit, can you throw up Michael's comment real quick? Because I think it's an interesting point. You think this acquisition will affect when we go profitable, maybe push it back a quarter, but good in the long term. So I actually had the opposite speculation that if they can get their ducks in a row faster, then that could mean SoFi putting more money behind promoting home loans towards the second half of the year. And actually that could be a tailwind for profitability because student or home loans wasn't really very much accounted for as a revenue driver in 2023. So I don't know, maybe what's the group's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know, right? And I think a lot of the accounting issues, like if we did use stock or something like this, and then having to put that on the expenses for the year. And so he's saying that, by the way, that the year is not going to be positive by Q4. It's the quarter that will be GAAP profitable. In that case, if this happens now, I wouldn't see how it would affect it.
I think it'll be accretive. I think that they're probably, so as far as I can tell, they've never had a funding round. I think it's pretty much wholly owned by the founder and whatever stock options he's given to his employees, which makes me think that they've probably been profitable or at least cash flow positive if they haven't had to, raise any funding. So I think it's probably EBITDA at least positive, probably GAAP positive, but I don't know. That's my thought.
This goes to show you how unbelievably amazing that company must have been if they did not do a funding round. And they grew to 800+ employees at one point in a span of 20 years on mortgage tech alone with no funding round. That sounds crazy.
All right. Well, that's it for us. I put Chris's Twitter in the description. Everyone's Twitter is in the description, but I put his in the chat. The tweet he did breaking the news got like 90,000 views. So if you guys care about
It was by
SoFi,
far the most views any of my tweets has ever had. Yeah.
yeah, if you care about SoFi,
Congratulations.
That's big numbers.
it's
Yeah,
huge.
wow.
You need to be following
And he was-
data-driven investing on Twitter. So we put that in the chat. Make sure you do that. Everyone's in the description. And yeah, Riley, go ahead.
And he was retweeted by Nodo.
Really?
2 times. Yeah.
Was
like
it?
the
Wow.
last couple days.
I love
May-
it.
Oh,
you know, I
my
don't
other
know. It
tweets, not
was-
that one. That one was not retweeted by Nodo.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's a
Yeah, that's crazy.
that's a little.
Chris,
that's
can
not
you
the
get
best.
Nodo on the spot for us? We hit him
I
up
don't know.
last
He
week.
doesn't even follow me. But I said good things about his company, and he was like, retweet.
He'll
Yeah,
follow you
yeah.
eventually. He follows most people. He'll follow you eventually.
Yeah. You're best friends with like his right-hand man. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure like we'll even settle with a Chris Lapointe.
I talked to him for like 20 minutes one time, guys. That's far from best friends.
All right,
Yeah, you
guys.
got him on
We're
speed dial.
out.
We know.
Palantir Weekly starts in 2 minutes. We'll see you guys there for those who want to join. See you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye
See
bye.
everybody.
Bye, guys.